Hey guys, it's been a really long time since I filmed a video. Forewarning, I am going to be doing my makeup while I do this story time because I guess I'm too fidgety. I don't want to just like sit here and look at the camera and talk. I need to be doing something. So let's do a get ready with me story time. This is going to be about the craziest relationship of my life. And if you are one of my close friends watching this, you know exactly who I'm talking about, but I am not going to use names because I'm just not going to. So this is going to be about my relationship with, let's call him Tom. So I met Tom 10 years ago. I met him actually on the same night that I met my ex-husband. And he was extremely outgoing, extremely personable, like life of the party in the best way. Everyone wanted to be around him. He was just a really fun, nice, outgoing guy. And I remember always being kind of drawn to him, like in a friendship type of way. There were definitely a few times when I was with my ex when we were dating that there was some flirtation, and I was open with my ex about that. I remember saying like, hey, there was one specific time I remember I was at a party, actually at my own old apartment, and he tried to kiss me in the hallway and we didn't kiss. But I remember being like, oh, Tom really does like me. But nothing happened. We kind of like, I'm gonna say we kind of like drifted apart after that. I like purposely put some space between us after he tried to kiss me, and I would still see him like in large group settings. We had a ton of mutual friends, so I would see him semi-regularly. I'll say like once a month. At its peak. Of course, there were times we went like months without seeing each other, but then me and my ex got married. I didn't really see him for a long time. Then me and my ex separated, and I was out at a bar on New Year's Eve. Sassy Ann's, like the best bar in Knoxville to ever exist. I miss that place so much. And I remember I saw him, I was going down the stairs and he was going up the stairs, and it was like this moment of like, oh my God, Tom. I haven't seen him in so long, and I was like newly single and I looked really good. I was like thriving in my singleness. And I remember looking at him and we just like talked for a few minutes, and I was like, you know that we're not together anymore, right? Referring to my ex. And he was like, what? And I was just like, yeah, we should like catch up soon. And he was like, yeah, I'll text you. And he did text me the very next day, and we went on our first date. I wasn't really sure that it was going to be a date, but he was just like, hey, do you want to get dinner? And we got dinner at Olive Garden. It's the only first date I've ever had at Olive Garden. And that was on like that next Friday, I want to say. So we got dinner at Olive Garden. It was nice. I kind of figured out that it was a date when it was just like very flirtatious. He looked very nice. He paid for dinner. And we sat there talking for a long time, just catching up. And then neither of us was really like ready to go home. So we went to a bar nearby where he had a lot of friends that worked there. And I specifically remember walking into the bar, and one of his, who I thought was one of his close friends, we'll get kind of more into that later, was working at the bar. And he was like, who is this? Because he like does not date, does not bring girls around his friends. And I remember that made me feel like so special, like, ooh, Tom doesn't date people. And we sat there at the bar across this little like high top table. It was like bar height, but it wasn't at the bar. And we sat there for another couple of hours and we had our first kiss. It was like semi-special. I'm not gonna say it's like the most magical first kiss I've ever had, but it was like, okay, this is happening. We're on a date. After that, I drove myself home, whatever, went home separately, and we started dating after that. He came over to my house to watch a movie a couple of nights later. And I'll say that from the start, there were a lot of red flags that I should have known were red flags, but I just didn't put two and two together. I'd say the first 3 times that we hung out, he was the Tom. I keep wanting to say his real name. He was the Tom that I knew and like initially had a connection with back when we were friends. He was like outgoing. I got to see him kind of with his friends, very like smiley all the time, very sweet to me, very complimentary. There were definitely some moments that were weird. I'm not going to get into TMI stuff, but there were some things about like kind of one of the milestones of the beginning of a relationship that some of the comments he made were like, what? Almost like it was, I can't say it. We'll just skip that part. So there were definitely red flags that I should have seen are red flags. He does not talk about his family like at all, ever. And like I said, after like the first 2 or 3 times of us hanging out, things just got really serious. Like not serious as in like the relationship got really serious, as in like he just became this super serious person. Like not the sweet, nice, kind, bubbly, life of the party person that I knew at all. And I know like people can't be on all the time, and he's not going to be that like on person when you're just like hanging out at home on a Tuesday night. But he was like very, very cold and distant. And when I would call him out on it, he was just like, that's just who I am. I'm just mysterious. Like no one really knows me. Like you'll probably never know me. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like at this point, we had kind of sort of like basically become exclusive. And it's like, okay, you say you're exclusively dating me, but you say I'll never really know you. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. It was like he would purposely just say things to make him sound like mysterious. For instance, he would say a lot that like, you can't Google my name. You'll never find anything about me. I've done like a really good job keeping myself on the down low. And there's people who can't know that I live here. There's people who can't know that I X or Y. He had multiple jobs. Like one of his jobs was being a bouncer at that club I was telling you about, and for like other clubs, but he would never really make it clear to me like when he was going out, if he was going out for work or if he was just like going out that night to hang out with his friends. And I am not what I consider a controlling person or like a controlling girlfriend, but like if it's Friday night and you're very obviously getting ready to like go out and you're not even talking to me or mentioning anything to me about it, and you're not inviting me, which I don't have to be invited every time. Seriously, I'm also a homebody. And at the time I worked night shift, so it wouldn't even be possible. But he would very obviously be getting ready to go out and not make it clear if he was working or not, which just kind of felt shady to me. The whole thing was just so shady. I did work night shift at the time, so I would expect, since he was also obviously working nights, that we would text. And for the first little while and on and off, we would text while he was at work and while I was at work. But there were times where he purposely would just like stop answering my messages, and I knew that he was at work. And and he would just stop answering my messages. And it was like he was purposely doing it to upset me. He was purposely doing it to make me worried, because of some of the comments he would make about like his life and his lifestyle and stuff. Honestly, I was worried about him when he would stop answering me. So then I would call him and he wouldn't answer, or I would call him twice and then he would text me back and be like, why are you calling me? I'd say, I just want to make sure you're okay. And he's like, it's not your job to worry about me. Okay, but you call me your girlfriend, but you don't want me to worry about you? Like, do you want me to not care about you? It just didn't make any sense to me at all. He also was just, honestly, from basically the start, 100% emotionally checked out. And all these things I'm probably saying, you're probably like, okay, then why did you friggin' stay with him? But hear me out. There were times that he was super sweet. There were times that he would say things to me that made me feel so special, and like, just that I was so special, because kind of with that whole like man of mystery thing, when I would talk to him about like kind of issues or concerns I had, because I'm a very vocal person in relationships, positive or negative. I'm very complimentary, but also if something isn't working for me or something isn't filling my needs, I'm going to tell you. And he would say things like, if it doesn't work out with you, I'm never dating anyone again, ever. This is my last chance. I'm like, A, that's really friggin' dramatic. And B, he genuinely seemed like he meant it. Like, it was just so, everything he said was so dramatic and so like grandiose. For instance, so the one really person close to him that he would talk about a lot was this girl he said was his best friend, and that she lived in California. And he would say like, we make all my decisions together. And like, what does that even mean? Like, you're your own person. I remember when we were talking about kind of like being exclusive or whatever, he was like, I mean, we can be exclusive, but you're not my girlfriend. I'm like, okay. And then one day he like dramatically tells me, so we talked it out and we decided that you can be my girlfriend. Like, again, what does that even friggin' mean? Like, isn't that something you can decide for yourself? But no, apparently he needed to like talk to her about it. And he said that she like encouraged him to go for it, which, yes, all these things should have been red flags, but apparently they weren't red enough for me. They were just maroon. Okay. Next. Sorry, I'm like jumping around, but there's just like so much stuff to talk about. I can't even think about all of it in chronological order. I tried to make notes for this, but it was just like way too much. And I will insert a couple screenshots. The first is going to be a text conversation that we had just like 6 weeks into our relationship. I will try to put it here and I'll try to talk over it. So I say, yes, we can be done hashing now. And that meant like, okay, we were talking about, I probably had an issue or concern and we were done like hashing it out. We're done hashing. And then I said, okay, if we're done hashing, are you going to be nice to me now? And he said, do you think you deserve nice? And he was not saying it in like a flirty way, like, oh, you think you deserve for me to be nice to you? No, it was like, you think you deserve nice? And I said, yes, I think everyone deserves nice. And he was like, I'm not nice to anyone. I said, well, I'm not anyone. I'm the person you call your girlfriend. So you should be nice to me. And I do think I deserve that. And that was just a perfect example of how a normal conversation would be for us. Like on a normal day, that is how he would talk to me. I very specifically remember one time we were sitting on the stairs in my apartment, which, back to the apartment. Okay, let's get to my apartment. So maybe 2 months into us dating, he had spent the night with me, and I wake up in the morning early to him like literally staring at me, and that had never happened before. It's like he was waiting for me to wake up, and that was not normal. He normally was an early riser because he'd like get up and go to the gym, but he was just staring at me, and I was like, is everything okay? And he very calmly told me, no, everything isn't okay. I've talked with the bank and they are coming by today to get my car. Just very matter of fact. And I was like, what do you mean they're getting your car? He was like, they're taking it. We worked it out. So I obviously quickly learned that. So his car was being repossessed that day, and he was just very calmly telling me that. Me, a very, very empathetic and caring person, an Enneagram 2, I felt so bad for him and just like couldn't even imagine what he was going through. Now I can imagine it. But I was like, oh, well, I mean, what are you going to do? And he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Who knows what'll happen to me? Just like very dramatically. And me, like all these thoughts are swarming around in my head. Like, what's going to happen to him? Like, how's he going to get to work? What's he going to do? And the words just fly out of my mouth. I say, well, why don't you just move in here with me? And we can share my car. And you can just pay me rent, and that'll be better for me too. Because at the time I was working 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs as a nurse. So I'm thinking like, okay, he can move in here with me. I won't have to worry about him being shady because he'll live with me. So I'll know where he is. I'll know if he's home. And we can share a car, and that'll bring us closer. And I'll be helping him. So he'll be super thankful for it, and he'll be so nice to me. That is how my warped brain used to work. I used to think like, oh, maybe if he lives with me, he'll be nice to me. Maybe if he lives with me, he'll be so thankful for me helping him and be nice to me. That is how warped my brain was. So he moves in with me that day. He goes to his apartment, which I never saw, and gets all his stuff in my car. It was only like 2 loads, and moves in with me. Okay, everything's hunky-dory. Kind of, sort of. To get back to the stairs. So, and back to how he talked to me. So to put this into frame, we had maybe been living together a couple weeks, and we were sitting on the stairs, and I talked to him about how I wasn't happy with a couple aspects of our relationship. I wasn't happy with the fact that we never went on date nights. I wasn't happy with the fact that he wasn't affectionate to me, and I just didn't feel very cared for. And he looks at me with a straight face and sits there, and he was like, okay, so I'm going to need you to lay it out for me exactly what you want me to do. I was like, I've just told you what I'm not happy with. And he was like, okay, so you want me to kiss you 3 times a day? You want to not say for work this often? You want to go out on 1 date a week? Okay, let's write it down and sign a contract. What? Like, I fully understand it. I've had these conversations with my current partner about like, okay, this is like how often I would like to do certain things. I would love to cook together 2 or 3 times a week. I would love to do this often. But he was just it was like we were sitting down for a business contract. Like, okay, that's what you need from me. Okay. But he was just all about the numbers. It was like our relationship was just all about the numbers. Even when it comes to like one of the conversations we were having, I was expressing like my feelings to him, and he looks at me with a straight face and says, well, 3 times this week I've come home and you've been in a bad mood. 5 times in the past month I've come home and you've been crying. 7 times in the past month you've XYZ. And it's like, do you have a note in your phone where you tally every time I cry? Like, that's not normal. That's not normal behavior. Again, not a red flag for me. Somehow. Everything went on being pretty hunky-dory until about 4 months into our relationship. My car that we were sharing, remember, because his car was repossessed, broke down. I was actually on my way to pick him up from work because we shared a car, and I'm driving down the road. Luckily, it was like late at night. I was going really slow. My axle just snapped, and my car was totaled, because it was like a 10, 12-year-old car. No, it was like 8 years old. Anyways, it was an older car, and the cost it would be to repair it was way more than the car was worth, and they considered it totaled. So, and this is one major thing to say about him, because a lot of times hard to do eyeliner and talk. When I talk to my friends, or anyone really about this relationship, it's like, why did you stay with him for so long? Which, by the way, we were together a little over 6 months total, which was like 6 months too long. When I was in crisis, he was incredible. It was like a switch flipped and he was just there for me. And like that entire cold, mysterious person was gone. And he was just like so kind and wonderful and like just there for me 100%. Like when my car broke down, I was so freaked out. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what he was going to do. I didn't know. I had never bought a car before in my life, except for buying that one from my parents. So I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to go about the process. And he walked me through it, like literally and figuratively held my hand through the whole process, helped me do research, went with me to the dealership, helped me negotiate. Then we're at the dealership and I find this car that I really like. It was out of my price range. But I fell in love with it and there was a really good salesman, and Tom, I keep wanting to say his name, Tom, basically talks me into it. He's like, I know you really like it. It's a really good car. It'll be great for us. We live together. I pay you X number of dollars a month. How much more would I need to give you a month for you to be able to afford this car payment? And he agreed to it. And he basically talked me into it. And I had that sense of security of like, okay, well, he's going to pay me more money a month, so I'll be able to afford this car payment easily. I didn't take into the fact that I was in an abusive relationship and now I was locked into it and I was financially dependent on this person, and that's terrifying. And I don't know if that was his intention whatsoever, but it's what happened. So I got the car and I was super excited about it, and I could not afford that car. So fast forward after that, things honestly just got worse and worse. He got more and more distant. And I became more and more just kind of like desperate to make it work. I had just been going through a divorce and I did not want to go through another breakup. And I just had this image in my head of what I thought we could be together, of the initial Tom that I kind of had a connection and sparks with, and that person that he was in public with people. I could not understand why he couldn't be that person for me every day. And he would continue to just say these like crazy statements about how no one really knows who he is and I'll never know the real him. And like literally, I vividly remember laying in bed with him, talking to him, like basically begging him to just tell me like what all these weird statements about. And he literally would not answer my yes or no questions when I was like, are you trying to tell me you're in the friggin' witness protection program? And he'd be like, I can't disclose that information to you. What? Who is this person? And I remember getting dinner with one of my best friends. I'm not even going to say his name, but you know who you are. And telling him about these statements that Tom was making, and him just like busting out laughing, like, these delusions of grandeur are insane. So things got worse and worse. He was more and more cold. I was desperately trying to make the relationship work. I was like, at one point I was like, let's go on a trip together. Like, I have never taken like a real vacation. I want to take a vacation. Like, it would be so special. And we initially planned to go to Disney World with his best friend and his best friend's girlfriend. And this was one of the few people that I like kind of saw out and about. It's actually who he used to live with. We sat down and had like a planning meeting about it, and I went to his best friend's house, and like, it was like all set and ready to go. And then the week before we were supposed to leave for Disney World, and we were going for July 4th, they backed out, and they were the ones who like had booked the room. We got this like house at this Disney resort, and I was like so excited, and they backed out, and I was devastated because I was so excited for this trip. So we spur of the moment decided to go to New Orleans together, and we drove my car. of course. And honestly, it was a great trip. Like, it was not perfect. It definitely wasn't perfect. But we had some, like, we ate great food. We saw the sights. Like, it was a new environment. It was just us. Like, he couldn't go be shady away from me because it was just us for the long weekend. It was hot as balls. I'm dying to go back to New Orleans, not over 4th of July weekend, but it was like a really, really great trip. And I remember us having like some really special moments together where I thought like, yes, this is what I thought we could be like. This could be us. And then we got back. So keep in mind, our whole relationship started like New Year's Eve. And then this is July 4th. When we got back from that trip, literally everything crashed and burned. It was like a switch flipped when we went on the trip, and it flipped right back down and was off forever when we got back from that trip. Literally the day we got back, the next time I had to go to work, I was texting him while I was at work. And at that point in time, we worked opposite shifts. During that time, like right before we went to New Orleans, he actually got a car. He randomly showed up with a Mercedes. How he got a Mercedes, I have no idea. It was from CarMax, but still it's a friggin' Mercedes, and it was really nice and relatively new. So he showed up with a Mercedes out of nowhere. And so we weren't sharing a car anymore, and we were on opposite schedules. So like, I worked night shift still. When I came home in the morning, he was gone, all ready for work. And there were days that we were just like passing like shifts in the night and we wouldn't see each other. So literally from the day we got back on the trip, I'm texting him and he stopped responding to my texts, stopped responding to me. And when I tell you that this made me go off the deep end, it truly made me go off the deep end. I was going nuts. I was calling him all hours of the day and night, texting him, are you okay? What's wrong? Just like going off on him, sending him 3-page long text messages. I was at my wit's end how this man who was living with me, who I just got back from this incredible trip with, was essentially ghosting me when we lived together. I would come home in the morning and he had obviously been there. My dog had been fed and walked. The shower was wet, the towels were wet. He had obviously gotten ready for work. He was living in my fucking apartment and he wasn't answering me. This went on for 4 days. 4 days. I did not see him. He was living in my apartment. He wouldn't answer any of my calls or texts. I let my boss know what was going on. I found coverage for my shift. I pretended to go into work on the 4th night. It was either the 4th or the 5th night. Stayed out for a couple hours, went to like Walmart or something because it was like an 11 to 7 shift, and showed back up at my apartment in the middle of the night. And there he was asleep in my bed, and woke him up. And I literally was like, what the fuck is going on? And he just stared at me. He did not say a word. He just stared at me. And I start bawling. And I'm like, literally, what is going on? You've been ignoring me. I've been worried sick about you. You're just going to ghost me. And he just stared at me. And I cry to him for probably 5 more minutes, and he just stares at me. And I tell him, okay, you need to get your shit and get the fuck out. And he sits straight up out of bed, gets dressed, packs up all his things, and leaves. And I did not see or hear from him for months after that. That's how our relationship ended. We got back from that trip. He ghosted me for 4 days while living with me, and that was how our relationship ended. There's so much more to this story, so many more just like little weird interactions we had or crazy things that he said to me. But the moral of this story is to trust your gut and to not let anyone treat you in a way that makes you feel crazy or that makes you feel less than or that makes you feel like you're too much. If someone makes you feel crazy, it's because honestly, probably they are abusing you and they are gaslighting you. And you don't deserve that. I don't care what you're going through, there's a way out. I was devastated when we broke up, but I was also so relieved. It was like this nightmare I had been in for 6 months was over because I felt so crazy and I didn't even understand why. And I just so badly wanted to make it work. And I finally realized like this person is crazy and it's never gonna work. So I've just wanted to tell that story literally for years. Again, so much more to it. So sorry I jumped around so much, but I hope this was entertaining to you. If you have any questions, put them down below. If you want more crazy Tom stories, let me know, and maybe I'll actually formally write them down and tell you some more. But thanks for watching this video, and hopefully I will post another video sooner rather than later.